Good afternoon. Call to order the January 28th, 2019 Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. We'll all rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Roll call of the members of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Councilor Novoselsky. Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Councilor Zambudo is absent. Council President Guanasso. Here. And Chairman Keefe.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on the agenda is Council Order 18-368, motion presented by Councilors Giannino and McKenna, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to reduce the price of commercial vehicle permits for vehicles registered to the City of Revere from $420 to $100. The cost for commercial vehicle permits for vehicles registered in any other city shall remain at $420.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Being this is Councilor Giannino and McKenna's motion, I would ask that if any of the councilors would like to speak on this. Councilor Giannino.
Thank you. So this is something that Councilor McKenna and I worked on together, and her ward as well as yours, Mr. Chairman, are two of the most heavily impacted in the city by this ordinance, but I believe all the ward councilors are affected. I just want to point out a couple things that, number one, it will not affect streets that are already have parking ordinances. It's in addition to. So there'll be two lists, if you will. There are this
is for the parking, the commercial.
Oh,
This
sorry.
one is on the reduction of commercial vehicle permit fees.
I was on my next motion.
Thank you.
This one speaks for itself. I'll let Councilor McKenna speak on it because she's been the chairman of this motion.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I agree with this. I think that we have a lot of businesses with commercial vehicles. I think they should be given a discount, and I think any other commercial vehicles that aren't registered in the city should pay $420. So I really agree with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Also, Councilor Zambudo has joined us in being a member of the council. If he wishes to speak, we'll forego this right now. Councilor Morabito would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look at this motion and I look at it as an anti-deterrent. I think we need something. I think we need to remain at 420 because we're looking to deter commercial vehicles in Revere. There's way too many that are parked. Right now, you have 2 commercial vehicles to a house, sometimes 3, even though the ordinance prohibits that. But they are finding loopholes around it. And I think lowering the commercial vehicle rate is not a way to deter parking issues. So keeping it at 420, I would be in favor of because I know I'm not a member of this committee, but that's my suggestion. Also, if it's a business vehicle, they can write off the $420 as a business expense.
Thank you, Councilor Morabito. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Councilor Morabito. It seems to me like every other household now has a commercial vehicle, and every other home practically in our community is someone who's self-employed or employed with other businesses throughout. And we're experiencing no longer residences. We're experiencing side businesses in every location, in every city, every street within the city. I certainly think, as Councilor Morabito stated, that the 420 is a deduction from revenue, that they can do that if they so see fit to do so. I don't think placing a $100 levy on anybody is anything, because everybody can afford the $100 nowadays. And it's no deterrent to take action. And this is, by the way, the parking issue throughout our community is one of the biggest, single largest complaints of all our residents. And we're going to address later on in the evening parking restrictions in terms of households. But We need to do everything within our power to keep our residences. It seems to me like there's so many properties that are opening up to being a business, and people didn't buy their homes to live next to a business. They bought their property to come and get a peace and quiet and enjoy a quality of life that they deserve after a hard day's work. But it just seems to me like everybody and their brother, they have these pickup trucks and they're banging all day, they're cleaning their equipment, and it's just because of these trucks' accessibility to bringing these things right to the streets of our city. And I'm not mean in any way. I don't want to see anyone pay any money, but I'm so bent on keeping the integrity of our community in place and keeping our residences and put the proper areas for commercial enterprises. Put that in the proper areas. But I don't believe they belong in residences, so I would wish that we keep it at the 420.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some mixed emotions on this. I understand what my councilors are saying. I've had many phone calls from my constituents that live in my neighborhood. And it's a very dense neighborhood. And there's a lot of hardworking people there, guys that paint houses, guys that they're plumbers on their own. And they don't mind paying a fee, but they just felt that the 420 was excessive. And, you know, we do have residents that are, you know, they're hard workers, but they work for every penny that they make. And it's very difficult for them to afford the 420. They're a one-man operation or a two-man operation. You know, they're not like, you know, where someone has 5, 6, 7, 8 trucks that they go out, like some of these plumbers and some of these painters. So, you know, I do have some thoughts on it. As far as I'm concerned, people that work for someone should not be bringing the truck into Revere and taking it home, bottom line. And I don't even think they should get a permit, a take-home permit. I think they, you know, let them park their cars someplace else, or their vehicles someplace else. You know, so I'm twixt in between the 420. Maybe there's some kind of number we can do that that's reasonable for our residents that do work hard, and come up with some kind of number rather than the 420 for people that live in the city, that have their business certificate in the city, that register the vehicle in the city, that live at their house in this city, and to show it by either a tax bill or a lease or some kind of utility bill to show that they live in the city. But people that bring their vehicles home, forget about it. I don't agree with that. But, you know, I think we ought to work with numbers for our city constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And for the record, later on, the third motion we're looking at has to do with the outside the city registered vehicles that are parking with a commercial ticket, commercial license. Councilor Zambudo, and then Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My position on this is perhaps we could lower it for a little bit for residents, maybe somewhere like $300. That's what Everett charges. I think that's a fair. But I would, along with my colleague from Ward 2, absolutely nobody from out of the city should be allowed a permit, in my opinion. So that's what I would like to see. Yes, I would even go a little lower than 300 if I can't get agreement on 300. But you know, to give a little bit of a break to our residents. But absolutely no outside vehicles should be able to be permitted for being in the city. It's you know, like state vehicles park in a general yard. If somebody has to take their vehicle, you know, close to their home because they need it, they park in a central location. These people, these businesses that have people that work, that are Revere residents, that work in their out of the city, If they're going to bring the truck, maybe they park it in a garage somewhere, pay to park overnight, whatever. There's plenty of deals like that, but I don't think we should be permitting commercial vehicles to come from outside the city and park in our city and take away parking spaces from our residents. I think it's crazy. Okay, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wonder, and maybe the clerk has the answer. I know back when I was in the police department, the ordinance had size pertaining to the size of whether a commercial vehicle could park on the street. Is that still in the books?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So it was, I believe it was a tonnage issue. I know the Director of Parking is here.
Because I'm against anything. I go along with that part of the ordinance. And if a person in Revere has a pickup truck or a van, I think he should be allowed to park it in his house, or in front of his house. As far as the fee is a little high, and I would like to come down on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. So also in attendance, we have the Parking Director, Jim Rose, and we also have Paula Agenzio, the Superintendent of Public Works, who also sits on the Parking Commission. So I think to answer some of those questions, Chairman of the Traffic Commission, to answer some of those questions, there is a tonnage limit. There's also a wheel limit on the commercial vehicles. And just to make it clear that we are going to be looking at the outside vehicles in ordinance number 3, in agenda item number 3. But I'm not sure if Jim, Mr. Rose, or Mr. Agenzio, if you wanted to come up and give us any information that you may have, or maybe some ideas how you'd like to shape this and talk to us about it.
James Rose, Parking Director, 300 Broadway, Revere. I was listening to the councilors here, and I'm in total agreement that the $420 may be a little excessive. I think if you're outside the city, you shouldn't be bringing a car, and we shouldn't be issuing permits for any price. It is probably right now, maybe we're talking 107 commercial permits. Out of that, probably 16 may be out of the city. Not a high percentage, a very low percentage of cars that are paying excise tax outside the city of Revere. What I would like to see maybe happen is if we lower the rate for the residents of Revere, I think $300 is a fair amount of money for charge for a permit. And the reason why I say that, we've worked very hard, the parking department, to clean up these commercial vehicles, and I think a lot of them they've kind of gone around it with the trucks that Councilor Patch has mentioned. A lot of them have gone back to the registry and put their regular passenger plates on. So they've already have been able to avoid, outsmart us on some of that. But these commercial vehicles, what we've accomplished so far is we've been able to have them, they're pulling their commercial vehicles now in their driveway, and their passenger vehicles are coming out on the street, which if I have to see a commercial vehicle out there, I'd rather see it in the driveway with a 12 or a 15-foot ladder on it, which, excuse me, it's a lot better seeing it in the driveway than on the street. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Councilor McKenna, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Can we put a weight on commercial vehicles so they can't go back to a regular plate?
The weight, it's my understanding, is 10,000 pounds. I don't know how they're getting around it at the registry.
I think she meant a time weight, correct? A weight on time? Oh, wait, that's an RMV. I believe that's up to the RMV, though, correct?
It is, but they're not enforcing it for some reason.
Correct.
They're not enforcing it at all.
So could the city enforce that?
We can enforce it, yes. Yeah, 10,000 pounds.
Why don't we take on that responsibility to enforce that since the RMV is not enforcing it? Because, I mean, that's what's happening. Everybody finds a loophole and they work around things so they don't have to pay the money. So I've noticed a lot of these big, gigantic trucks with regular plates on them.
Right, well, that's happened. We can enforce that, but if they're already coming in and they've already gotten around it, how are we going to go out and basically locate them and find out where they are?
I could tell you where 3 are.
You could tell me where 3
Yeah.
are. I could probably tell you what a few are, but
Right.
in general, it's a problem.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Guanasso, did you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, I've been working with the building inspector in reference to Sozio's, where he's parking all these huge trucks, these diesel trucks. And I would say he's probably got 30, 40, 50 trucks there. On my way up here this evening, Mr. Chairman, I got a notification that there's a gas leak at that location. Lo and behold, if that ever is true and something explodes there, you know what would happen to our city? We would be wiped off the earth. There's so many large trucks there. We've got to put a grip on this thing that's happening to our city. It seems like somebody's taken the liberty to say, go park your trucks in Revere. They're all over. They're ruining our median strips. I'm pleased to say that Benny has issued a cease and desist, and that was issued last week. And I went by there this morning. The trucks are still there. He's being This is an explosive, dangerous situation about to happen. Now we have a gas leak there. I don't want it on my conscience that I didn't do everything within my power to rid those trucks of this area. That's an explosive area. And God forbid a tragedy to happen. It would be on all of our minds because we allowed it to take place. And this is occurring elsewhere in the city. And for some mindset, they think it's okay to come here. That's why I'm so adamant about parking restrictions for resident parking for the whole city. We got to put a grip on this thing. We got to stop this proliferation of these trucks and cars coming from elsewhere to come here. So I think, Mr. Chairman, with your good work and the works of this council and the cooperation of the Traffic Commission, which I know we do have, things are going to get done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. So to sum this one up,
Mr. Chairman, may I
yeah.
speak?
Oh, Councilor Powers, welcome.
Thank you. I certainly agree 100% with Councilor Guanasso. I've driven by there numerous occasions, and all I see are tractor-trailer cabs, tractor-trailer trucks. They're parked out near 107. They're parked on the property on Squire Road, and one bad fire up there. And we just had a fire up there. You know, people in the city have a problem. I just went by. It took me actually, we're going to parking now. It took me actually 25 minutes to get from Wonderland to Bell Circle just now. The city is inundated with parking. I went by Wonderland. There's got to be 700-800 cars in the parking lot down there. The city's getting no revenue whatsoever from any of this. It's just a nuisance. So I hope that, you know, there's something we can do about, particularly that property up there on Squire Road. Get those trucks out of there. They shouldn't be there. It looks like a traffic stop or a truck stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One final thought. A lot of the, you know, maybe that 10,000 gross volume weight, I don't know if we established that when we first did it, maybe we can lower that. Okay, if, you know, maybe the Traffic Commission can help us lower that number and reduce the size of some vehicles that are out there, because you have pickup trucks in Econoline vans. You got 1,500, 2,500, and 3,500. The 3,500s go over to 10,000. The 2,500s are around 8,000 gross volume weight. And also, these people that are changing their plates, I'm sure they have some kind of advertisement on their doors to say, I'm in the painting business or I'm in the plumbing business, but they have commercial plates on, which I think their insurance companies have an issue with anyways. But if they have regular plates and a commercial advertisement on it, it's a commercial vehicle. I don't care if it has passenger plates or not. That's the way I look at it, and they should be tagged.
Thank you, Councilor. You bring up a good point, and I just wanted, if I could just bring up a couple suggestions, and I'd like to potentially bring this to vote. If there's any form of advertisement or striping on the vehicle, lettering, would the city be able to deem that a commercial vehicle, or would the parking department? So we could add that to this. So my request would be to amend this motion to change the the rate to $300 for in-city vehicles only, meaning vehicles registered to the City of Revere with a business registered to the City of Revere. Amend it to add any vehicle that has lettering or deems itself is a business use. And I think the tonnage would be very hard to gauge, because what happens is if it's a, was it 750 or a 450, they rip the letters right off. So it's very easy to kind of disguise that. And I don't know if the city would actually, I don't think the parking department would ever really be able to determine the weight. The RMV usually does that. So if we can add those two amendments, I think that, again, in my opinion, I prefer to have less commercial vehicles on the street, but we do want to be somewhat amendable to the residents of Revere. And I think the $100 would be too enticing, where the $300 is a happy medium, and it's consistent with our neighboring town. So is everyone okay with that? Yes. Okay. So the police department does check the weight in advance. Okay.
One question.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Chairman. I have just one question. Are we authorized to do this, or is this goes to the Traffic Commission? The Traffic Commission has the final say in this, correct?
Yep. We would be voting to send this to the Traffic Commission.
Okay.
So, roll call with the amendments.
Mr. Chairman, one quick thing. If the gross volume weight can be set up by the police department, why can't we include that to reduce it to a number that's within?
What would your suggestion be?
I would say about 8,000.
Point of information, if they have a passenger plate, you're going to have a problem with weight. So, I mean, that's probably where it needs to be corrected. I can't really discuss any more about that, but that's, I don't think we can assume the weight is what it is if they have a passenger plate on it.
7,000 would work for me. You know, and that brings it down to just below a 2,500.
It's just, you know, my gut feeling says that in some cases that just may not do it for some of those box
I don't know where the 10,000 came from, whether it was from our traffic commission or.
Well, that's what's currently on there right now, the 1 ton.
Is that about part of an ordinance?
Yes.
So, I don't know, can I get some input from the traffic chairman or the parking director?
Mr. Argenzio?
Thank you, Paul Argenzio. As far as the weight, that's going to be tough to determine. I think the provision that if it's lettered, a company business or what have you, stick with that and keep the under 10,000. I mean, a 2,500 or 3,500, the weight varies a little, but the size of the truck is the same. Right, yeah, right. So I think the parking department visually looking at a truck and could probably determine just visually by determining that.
Thank you, Mr. Argenzio. So, Madam Clerk, if you can read the new provision with our added amendments. Thank you.
So the motion shall read now, to be forwarded to the full City Council for consideration, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to reduce the price of commercial vehicle permits for vehicles registered to the City of Revere from $420 to $300. The cost for commercial permits for vehicles registered in any other city shall remain at $420.
I want to eliminate the vehicles from another city.
That's the next thing. That's 2 more down.
But why are we leaving that in this?
Well, just if it fails, then we would have.
Oh, yeah. Let's just.
On the motion as amended, Councilor Novoselsky? Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the motion will be forwarded as amended to the full City Council with a favorable recommendation. Second item on the agenda is Council Order Number 18-384, motion presented by Councilors Giannino and McKenna, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to review and establish a citywide resident parking program utilizing the attached draft Traffic Commission regulation.
Madam Clerk, may I ask that we just real quickly, because I think that we're all hot on this topic with the outside vehicles. Can we go to the third motion? I think that the discussions have already happened, so we could probably have a quick vote on that.
Okay. Council Order 18-399, motion presented by Councilor Keefe that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to repeal the provision of the commercial vehicle parking ordinance, which allows for the permitting of take-home company vehicles not registered to the city of Revere.
Fellow councilors, if I may, or Mr. Argento, if you'd like to come up and speak, but this pretty much sums up that if you are an outside of the city business and/or vehicle that's not registered to the city of Revere, you would not be granted a commercial parking permit. You would be able to take your vehicle home if you wanted to, but you'd have to park it on private property, which would be your own. So my efforts would be to eliminate this completely. And Mr. Argento.
We have a Traffic Commission meeting this Thursday, and we're holding a public hearing. The first item at that public hearing is to eliminate this provision. So it's on our agenda, and it'll be before us, the first item on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Argento. So we don't even need to vote on this, or if you want, we can make a vote on this and just we can
I
send
have
it.
a point of inquiry first?
Sure. Councilor
If
Zambito.
we're going to, when do these licenses go from? Do they go from the first of the year or the calendar year? So are we going to rebate or prorate? If we're going to take away somebody's permit, we've got to compensate them. You're not going to wait a whole year to let them expire. So,
Mr. Chairman, just an FYI, the permits for this year have not been issued.
that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you for the information, Council.
I was looking for information. You gave it to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess we could vote on this, and we could send that as a letter of favorability if we do vote in favor to the Traffic Commission. Madam Clerk?
So on the motion, Councilor Novoselsky. Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Councilor Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes. Council President Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Keefe.
Yes.
Yes, the motion will be forwarded to the full City Council with a favorable recommendation.
So we have the last item on the agenda. It's going to be a lengthy discussion, but I think that I'd like to hear from Councilor Janino and Councilor McKenna on this. They put a lot of work into it. And I know that I would just ask that our fellow councilors, we're going to probably keep this in committee for the next meeting we have so we can discuss it further, but I'd like to have them just bring up some of their biggest talking points, if that's okay. Thank you. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of things on this that I'll just make very brief today. Councilor McKenna and I worked hard on this, and as I mentioned before, that your ward and hers are very heavily impacted by this motion, as well as many ward councilors, but especially yours. So a couple things to keep in mind for this. Number one is that think of it as two lists, right? So areas of the city that are already permitted. For example, if your street already has a sign up that lists specific rules, maybe you're near a T station or an area that's impacted already by resident parking, you're not affected. This would be in addition to the existing. So if your street already had a set amount of hours, whatever the new regulation would be in addition to those set hours. So it may make the street 24-hour resident parking versus 12-hour resident parking, or however it was set now. List number two would be all of the streets that are not resident parking yet, and that would be to make it easy for the entire city. So rather than trying to figure out, okay, this street's this time to this time, but this street's this time to this time, the way this ordinance is written is to make it easier to regulate, easier to understand, and uniform throughout the city. So I don't want people to be nervous that already have resident parking in their area. It's not going to affect them. If anything, it'll make it better. So a couple notes on that. I know we'll get into it more, and I'll open it up to Councilor McKenna. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, every sticker, I think we decided that they're going to have street names. So people have been asking me, we don't know about the color yet, but people have been asking me, well, if I'm on Winthrop Ave and I want to go see someone on Endicott Ave, will I get ticketed? And every household is going to get 2 plackets, visitors' plackets. So that person that you're visiting can give you the placket, and you can put it in your car, and you won't get ticketed. So that's one of the misconceptions of this. And it will relieve parking if in front of your house. So a person from 2 streets, 2 streets can't park in front of your house if they don't have a Winthrop Ave sticker on their car. So this is going to help everybody. The other thing I want to say is this citywide parking ordinance is a great thing for Revere because parking is one of the hottest issues that we have. And it's going to eliminate, especially people that are renting rooms or Airbnbs, people that are not registered in Revere, cars that are not registered in Revere will not get a ticket, will not get a sticker. You have to show your registration so it shows that you are living on a certain street in Revere. Anybody that doesn't have it can't get a sticker. So this is going to eliminate so many cars. I just want to say that I have a rooming house that is next door to me, and they have multiple cars. She rents 8 rooms, and I know, okay. And the city's been up there, and it's very hard to prove, but they have multiple cars, and they're not registered in Revere, so they're parking where there's no permit parking. So this is going to eliminate a lot of, it's going to free up a lot of parking, and it's going to eliminate a lot of cars. And that's just, it's going to be great for Revere. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. So we're coming up on our time, and this one topic is going to take up probably an entire Legislative Affairs subcommittee. So what I'd like to do is table this until the February 11th council meeting, or 5 o'clock, and schedule a Legislative Affairs subcommittee. And I know that I appreciate Mr. Genzio and Mr. Rose being here. If you'd like to be here in attendance for that as well, we'd love to have you. We can offer some, you can offer some insight, and we can ask many questions. And the hopes is to clarify this as much as possible, and then the second hope is to actually implement it. And the hopes is to implement this before the middle of the year. I would say definitely before the summer. So we'll hopefully be able to clarify this as much as possible and get it in play, because this is something that the councilor and the entire city has been waiting for some time.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know this is a very difficult package to absorb all at once, but I'd like to make a suggestion that we forward this to the Traffic Commission as is, and so they can schedule a hearing for February, and then when it gets to them, they have the right to tweak it anyway, because it's their ordinance. So I think we ought to start the hearing process, and now we have a month to work on it anyway, and bring whatever changes we want to do then to at the public hearing, and make, I only have some minor adjustments. And I think if they hear it and we give them our points, I think they'll consider it. Mr. Chairman?
I'd be okay with that. I think, Mr. Agenzio?
Okay. Well, if it comes before us and we hold a public hearing, what we hear at the public hearing, we could send it back to you, or we could table it with the changes that were suggested by residents or the problems that the residents may have, and we could table it, send it back to you, and then we could have a discussion then, if that's what you feel like. Yeah. If you want to hear from the public first, we could schedule a public hearing with the document as it exists now.
Yes, that's what we want to do.
Okay.
That's what I want to do. I know, Mr. President would like to see that, to try and speed up the process.
Okay. So we have a Traffic Commission meeting this Thursday. We can take this as a late communication, send it to public hearing. The public hearing would be the last Thursday in February.
And then if there's any adjustments.
If you'd like, we could probably schedule it a little later in the day if a lot of residents want to come up, maybe to be easier for them to come after work, if you'd like to do that.
I think that would actually be great. I wasn't sure that you'd be able to get it on this week's agenda, so that's fantastic.
Well, we can take it as a late communication, send it to a public hearing.
Wonderful.
At the last, okay?
Great, thank you. Councilor Guanasso, do you have something?
Mr. Chairman, this is the single largest issue that the city has before us. And I think that 2 years ago, we implemented many meetings we had with residents. We could sit here forever and debate the issues of why we shouldn't, why we should. I think we should just go forward, place it in order, get it on board, and then we can critique it as we need to do. But we just can't sit back and wait and say, we'll have a meeting next week, we'll have it the following week, we'll have it the following week. We did that for 2 years, and we got nowhere, because you're going to get different views from different people. You just have to do what the populace wants, and the people want us to do something about the cars in our community. We're doing something about it. And so don't be antagonistic to it. Join in it. Let us see how it works. And then we can work with it when it's in place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. So we're going to do a roll call to send this to Traffic Commission this week. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Novoselsky? Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the citywide resident parking ordinance will be forwarded to the full city council for consideration.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.